What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Nayo Campbell with WHUT Digital, and I'm here joined by the writer, creator, the mastermind, the neurotic, what would you call it? You said the neurotic?
The neuroses.
The neuroses behind David Makes Man, that airs on OWN. And first, I just have to say this show is just wow. But let me say your name, because I totally forgot to say that. Tarell Alvin McRaney, okay? So the writer, creator, the mastermind behind David Makes Man. And it's a pleasure to be sitting with you today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's so dope to I've been watching the show. I've watched the first 3 episodes. I have to literally watch the show every episode at least twice because there's so many things that I miss. It's a family show. My family and I watch it together, my parents and I. And my dad and my mom and I will just discuss each episode. My dad's like, wait, what are you talking about with this? And so we have to go back. And it's there's so much that happens.
Yeah.
Did that happen? Was that actually a dream? Was that just something that they were going through in their head? Or did that happen actually in the show? So I just have to applaud you for your creativity.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. A lot of the thought behind making a show like this was about intentionality, making sure that when we engaged audiences, folks had to go back and go, wait a minute, I need to watch that again to make sure I understand completely what was happening, and mostly because in that life, isn't that what we do when we go home? We replay the day over and over again and say, did that actually happen? Did that happen the way I thought it did? Did that happen the way I imagined it to? The feelings that I got from that, are they, based on the reality of the moment or what I interpreted them to be? And I think as Black people, we're often being told that the reality in which we see and feel isn't. And we wanted to make sure that the world in which our young people specifically, but all of us are perceptibly moving through, that you sometimes have to go back and go, you know what, let me rewatch that moment where Gloria is, in her head thinking one thing and then the reality is happening in another way. Exactly.
Because I literally thought that she got it. And I do have to comment on that because the lighting, so whoever your creative person behind that, the creative director, all that.
We got a lot of good creatives.
Yeah, there's a lot of creatives that are involved, but the lighting within that scene, I was like, oh, okay, so that's the difference between the reality and what's going on in her head. Because that's something I didn't pick up until the end of the show, the end of that episode. So great job on that.
Thanks. That's not just me. That's all of our great cast and crew down in Orlando. We also have some wonderful people. Our cinematographer, Todd Dos Reis, who, again, along with the director for that episode specifically, who's a young man named Kyle Adrian Scott, who, again, we want to tell the story with all the subtleties, but we also don't want you to be able to walk away sort of just spoon-fed everything. We want you to have to re-engage with these folks' lives.
So you mentioned the director for that episode. Do you have different directors for each episode, or how does that work?
So we shot the David Makes Man has 10 episodes, and we shot them in blocks. Okay. The first episode, which is the longest and the largest, the pilot, was shot by a man named Michael Francis Williams, who is a young early director who's amazing, and then for the 3 blocks afterwards, the 9 episodes afterwards, the 3 blocks afterwards, but the 3 episodes each. Kyle Adrian Scott did 2, 3, and 4. 5, 6, and 7 were a director named Dana Reed. Okay. And 8, 9, and 10 were done by the heroic Cheryl Dunye, who is an incredible Black queer filmmaker who also worked on shows like Queen Sugar, is a director in her own right in features, and so you will be able to see their elements in it as well, their artistic visions as they go on, but also they really stayed true to trying to make sure the intentionality behind the reality, your reality, and the reality that you feel on the inside, that there's some palpable distance between it.
Okay, so what are those conversations like? Because this is loosely based off your life. So as the writer and as the creator, how do you kind of just step back and give that to the director to kind of tell that story?
Well, it's an interesting conversation in this way. I'll ask you a question. Did you go to a gifted and talented school?
5th grade, that was it.
Yeah. So you did for some point.
And I love it. It's a program.
Right.
Yeah.
So you went to a program. Was it at your school?
Yeah.
Okay. And so did you get out of regular class to go to it?
Yes.
Okay.
Dr. Yuwana.
See?
remember her name.
Exactly. You always do. And so there's Dr. Wood's trap. So the fact that you have someone in your life like that you have that experience, every time I walked this story into a person and told them about it, they would do that. They would go, you know, I didn't do everything like David, but here are the moments that were like David for me. And so every partner on this has had that moment, be it Miss Oprah Winfrey, who wanted to talk to me about her students in South Africa, who, you know, were in her school and in her program, and then they were going to these Ivy League schools and having this moment of disconnect where they were like, well, I am no longer in the care of my community. I'm in this other place. Why is this anxiety up? Why is the learning curve different? Right? Similar to MBJ, who said, you know, when he started off and started wanting to do more and focus on his talent and take it out into the world, it was different than going home to Newark.
MBJ is Michael B. Jordan.
MBJ, yes, sorry. Yeah. Michael B. Jordan?
Yeah.
I didn't mean to name drop. Our showrunner, D. Harris Lawrence, who another person who, again, when she first read the synopsis and the script, said, you know, I was David.
Yep, she told me that. Yeah.
You know, I was a female David, as she says it, and those moments to me are very important. So that meant that every time I talked to a director, they would talk to me about their moments.
Yeah.
And every time I talked to the writers in the writers' room, they would talk to me about their moments. And so we just made sure that we were connectively coming together about and putting a conversation that everybody could enter into.
I just had a moment just now because I literally like had a flashback to when I was in those talented and gifted classes, and I was like, wow, was I the only Black girl? I was. And then I just had a whole little, so I could direct the episode now at this point, right? You know, just bring me on for season 2.
Come on.
Yep. But I do have to ask you, this show is basically going through childhood trauma. You see, you know, what David's going through, you see some of the other characters, but you rarely see it through the lens of a child. You kind of like see it on later on in their life when they're adults and they're like, oh, I went through this when I was a kid. How does it feel to be able to have this project on television that's rarely seen?
That's interesting because it's a hard thing to answer. The show has just aired and is out in the world. The response that I keep getting back or engaging in is almost the response that I want.
Almost, okay.
Which is that people are going, hey, that kid is experiencing a lot of things that I experienced at that age. Why? And people almost get to the point of going, hey, that's actually not great.
Yeah.
And what do I do now that I'm a grown person? Like, do I still carry on those experiences? And some of those conversations are starting to happen, and that's thrilling. And so I'm going, my job now is to help continue, in the tradition of artists like Julie Dash, like Ava DuVernay, like, all of the Black women who've made art that continues to help us have conversations about ourselves. I have to, put in the work to make sure that we have those conversations about our healing process.
And then another topic that's on the show is toxic masculinity, okay? That's very important on the show. And yeah, it is, but it's just like when it comes to like Black men, like we don't tend to see that. How do you want us to handle that issue? How do you want us to look at these episodes and maybe have these discussions after, like with our family? How would you like people to handle these issues?
There is no one way to handle any issue. Every person is different. Just like JG, Jonathan Gregg, who's played by Kaden Williams, is different than David, who is Keely McDowell. They are, and they're treated differently by their mother, Gloria. When that happens, when you see people, you see David being leaned on in a way that is different than his younger brother, you know that their experiences out in the world will be different. And so the things that David is going to have to go back and navigate through are going to be things that are different than what JG had to navigate through. He had David as a protector. He had David as a
big brother versus
as a big brother. Exactly. So it's the best thing that folks can do is just have a stark and truthful and graceful conversation with ourselves, which is what I'm doing. I advise people to do that because it's been helpful to me. But I look back and I go, you know what? All of the defense mechanisms that I put into place back then weren't great, but they helped me survive. I needed them for survival.
And then I do have to ask you, when going through those tough moments, what is something that you would gift yourself?
Now or then?
Let's talk about then.
I don't know. And because again, as a kid, you sort of just don't, the thrill of getting what you need, when you don't get it, you sort of learn not to expect it. As an adult, again, I just think we owe ourselves a great deal of grace and compassion, self-compassion, just compassion about all the things. You know, again, you got here. You were the only black girl in Dr. Who's class?
Dr. Yuana's.
Dr. Yuana's
yeah,
class.
She was tough.
She was tough. But you made it, right? And you figured out a way to make it through that, and you have to thank that younger person for figuring out how to do that.
And then real quick, because I have to wrap up, this show is based off your life, and so I do have to ask you.
Sure.
It's a quick game. All right, it's very quick. Very quick,
game.
promise.
I love games.
When it comes to, I'm gonna see what kind of child or teenager you were. Okay.
Got it.
So it's gonna be a game of this or that. So we're gonna start off with this: Whitney or Mariah Carey?
Whitney.
Whitney. Okay. Favorite Whitney song? Got you on the spot. Gotta be fast.
Dance with Somebody.
Dance with Somebody. Okay. Family Matters or Fresh Prince?
Oh, Fresh Prince.
Fresh Prince, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's almost no comparison between the two.
I mean, I like
Family Matters is good, but Fresh Prince.
But I also, Family Matters was around when I was younger, and so I just, every time he first of all, who would give up Myra for Laura?
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
All right.
And when he did that, I was like, you crazy.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Toni Morrison or James Baldwin?
Tony.
Tony?
Yeah, all day. Easy.
That's great. All right, and last one. The Best Man or The Wood?
You know.
Don't tell me you haven't seen it. Please tell me. Okay.
No. I've seen The Best Man.
Okay.
I've never sat through The Wood.
Are you joking? Neither has my assistant said the same thing. She's like,
I've never sat through.
What?
I've seen pieces of it.
It's so
been
good.
on, and but it's like, you know, when brothers get together and start having conversations, sometimes I just be like,
I almost want to revoke your black card for that.
Fine, dude.
Right,
listen, I'm gonna still be black. I'm gonna walk out on this campus, and they still gonna be trying to.
They still gonna try to talk to you, take some pictures, right?
Like.
Okay. Well, you need to see The Wood.
You think I need to see The Wood?
Within the year. The Wood's a really great movie. It's a great movie. It's different than The Best Man because you get to see the female perspective a lot throughout. But I think as a woman, I really appreciate The Wood because you see the three men versus like there's a conversation in The Best Man where they like talk about, you know, getting married. That's like one of the best scenes.
But isn't it? The funny thing is, it's almost the same.
It's
three
almost
actors.
It is. Except no, it is different. It's different. Richard T. Jones and Omar Epps were not. They were in different black movies at that time. The only person that was the same was Taye Diggs.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
So you have to see The Wood, and it also goes back into when they were teenagers and how their life as teenagers impacted.
But you remember that this didn't come out when I was a teenager. I was grown when these came out. So here's one for you. What about School Days versus
School Days versus Morehouse?
A Different World?
It has to be A Different World.
But you see what I'm saying? Like it's.
Well, that was a TV show and that was a movie, so I could do that.
Okay.
Give me something better. Nah, I'm joking.
No, I can. I'm sure.
Nah, those are both really great.
All right, Harlem Nights.
Okay, didn't tell. All right, and
you know Harlem Nights?
Yeah.
Okay, Harlem Nights, and Boomerang.
I actually haven't seen Boomerang.
About to revoke your black card.
Okay. All right. So that's how we're going to end the interview with both of our black cards being revoked on the campus of Howard University.
They're just suspended.
They're just suspended for the last. Okay, they're back now.
Yeah, we're back.
Now you guys can tune in to David Makes Man, created by this mastermind. That is Tarell Alvin McRaney. Thank you. And I forgot to mention, he's an Oscar winner too. We just got to drop that out there real quick. Just got to drop that in there. You know, you won an Oscar and a Tony.
I didn't win a Tony.
No, I'm sorry. You were nominated for 4 Tonys with.
We were.
You know, he's probably one of the most busiest men in Hollywood in life. So it's an honor to be sitting with you. I'm gassing, but you deserve it.
This is very sweet.
You deserve it. So this has been an exclusive interview on WHUT Digital. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Y'all.